This is nothing but that sports talk. Okay, well, on to another topic. I'm sure you've seen the New York Giants had just improved throughout the season. The Giants with a 7-4-1 record, while the Jets they're literally 7-5 themselves. Like, let's talk about the New York Giants first. They started off 6-2,
Mm-hmm.
or after that they kind of they started off 6-1. After that they kind of regressed a bit with with only one win, two losses, and a tie.
Yep.
So, and I watched your episode when you talked to Kelsey Nicole Nelson about the time with the Commanders, and she
Yeah.
wasn't really much of a fan of it. So,
No, nobody's a fan of a
yeah,
tie. Nobody's a fan of a tie, Rafik. Nobody is. Like, I think that, on New York Post and SNY, I'd spoken with some of the reporters who were there. And one reporter I talked to, Mark Cannizzaro, talked to me about how in the locker room, both locker rooms, it was just like nobody knew how to react to it. Um, the Giants, listen, the loss to the Lions was bad because that was right before Thanksgiving when they played the Cowboys in a game they needed to win, knowing that in December they had to play the Commanders twice, they played the Eagles twice to close out the season. That was a game they needed to win, and then obviously the tie with the Commanders is disappointing because of that. The Giants, I think what hurts them is you're starting to see a little bit of their offensive limitations and how that's coming to, for lack of a better term, bite them in the ass because they are very one dimensional. They depend on Saquon Barkley a lot. The receivers have not been good. They're not dynamic of an offense. They made a lot of the plays early. I don't think the team's lost confidence, but I think that look, it's going to be a tall order. No matter what happens against Philadelphia in Week 14, they got to win in Week 15 against the Commanders. I mean, it's a must-win for both teams. Um, the Giants are going to have to show. They're going to have to put up some points. I don't know how they do that. If they could steal a win against Philadelphia, I think that'd be fantastic for their playoff chances. But this is a team that's already overachieved. Um, and I think no matter what happens in the season, they should be proud of what they've done. They've set a good tone. They've set a good culture. I like Brian Daboll. I like what they're trying to do. But the skill positions, they need a lot more talent. I don't necessarily believe in a quarterback, although he's been solid this year. But they just need more talent, particularly at the skill positions, wide receiver, tight end. They need more help there. I think when that comes, they can be better. But they're just not dynamic of an offense to keep up, I think, with the good teams. And this is not a strong NFC, but they're just not dynamic enough offensively, I think, to keep up with the really good teams. And if you're a Giant fan, you should be concerned, but the defense plays hard, the team plays hard. I think Dayball set the culture there, and I think that's what bodes well. To me, once they got out to 6-2, yes, it'll be disappointing if they don't make the playoffs, but I still think this season is wildly a high success for the Giants because it appears they've turned their culture around. And I think that's what matters the most for them.
exactly, because look, you got Daniel Jones. Yes, he's not Eli Manning, but at the very least, he's very good at running the football as a quarterback. And
Yeah.
the Russian offense is there. That's not really an issue. But when the defensive line for the opposing teams end up shutting down the Russian attack of the New York Giants, they have to depend on the passing offense, and the only real wide receiver you have is Darius Slayton. You had Sterling Shepard before he went out for the season. I mean, you have other good receivers that has the potential to be what Darius Slayton and Sean Sterling Shepard were, but they're not exactly there yet. So when I'm looking at the New York Giants, if their overachievement doesn't continue until this Sunday against the Eagles, they have to rely on wins against the Commanders and the Indianapolis Colts to finish the season. And don't even get me started on the game against the Minnesota Vikings. We see how they shut down the New York Jets. We'll get into that later. But
yeah,
but as you look at the New York Giants right now, like, do you still think that they can make the playoffs?
it's gonna be tough, man. I think they can, but a lot of that really comes down to me, they're going to have to steal a game. They got to win a game they're not supposed to make this. And that means they're going to have to beat the Eagles one of these two times or Minnesota. I think if they steal one of those games, one of those three games, and they win the other two against Washington and Indianapolis, I think they will get in. That'll be 10. I think that will get them in. Although it might be tough. The tie might come back to bite them a little bit, but they're in good shape if they beat the Commanders. Because they beat the Commanders, they have the tiebreaker, and that's huge. Because they don't have the tiebreaker with Seattle. That's another team they have to worry about because they lost to Seattle. I think that I think right now they've got like a 50-50 chance, but I think it goes. Let's say they win against the Eagles on Sunday. Those odds get a lot higher. And if they beat the Eagles and they beat the Commanders, now you're playing good because you're at 9 wins. You should get 10 if you play the Colts. Should, or you get supposedly beat the Vikings. You should. You're playing with house money, not house money, I would say, but you're feeling good with 3 games to go. And you don't know what the Vikings match up when you play them, what they're going to be playing for. They might have the division wrapped up. I don't know. You don't know what else they'll be playing for. So it could be very interesting. I actually think this much I'll say. I'm not going to say the Giants are going to win Sunday against the Eagles, but I do think they're going to come out motivated. I do think they're pissed about this tie. I do think they come out motivated. Now, how long that'll last, I don't know. But I think they at least are going to give a better fight than people expect. I'll say that.
It's been a few seasons since the New York Giants won the December games, and after the win against the Philadelphia Eagles, they wouldn't win a game ever again last year when they were banged up with injuries. Mm-hmm. This time around, you can expect the Giants to at least put up somewhat of a fight to get into the postseason.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think they want to make the playoffs. I think everything around the team is they want to make the playoffs. Saquon wants to make it. Daniel Jones, they want that taste of it. And I think Brian Daboll has been preaching a lot of the hard work of what it takes and the discipline. But like I said, I think even if they don't, this year is still wildly a success. Like, let's say they win 8 games and they don't make the playoffs. They go 8-9 or something. You're disappointed they didn't, but I don't think if you're a Giant fan and you're really looking at big picture, you should be disappointed. The culture's there. This team is still trying to rebuild. They got a little bit ahead of schedule, kind of like the Knicks in 2021. But I think that the Giant culture will be fine. Even if they don't make the playoffs this year, I think they'll be fine because I like what they're doing and I like their coach and the tone that he set and what he expects of the culture. I think that's a good thing.
And that's what it's all about. The New York Giants, they're going to have a tough road, but I have a feeling they're going to pull off that 07-2011 New York Giant magic that they've had for those years where nobody really expected them to win the Super Bowl, but they made it happen anyway. It's because they worked hard. They don't listen to the experts. They played hard and won the games.
This is a team that plays hard. That's one thing you can say. They haven't cheated you in effort at all whatsoever. They haven't cheated you, and they play hard. And that's another sign to me. Even in their losses, you feel like they've played hard. And that's a testament to the coaching staff and the culture change. And to me, if you're a Giant fan, that's what you want to see. I think this is not the most skilled offensive team. The defense plays hard. I think the defense can get even better with pieces in the next year, but they play hard. No, you're absolutely right about that. Giants fans should be proud of that. They play hard. They're competitive. They've been in a lot of games. And when you hang around a lot of games, especially the ones where you're not supposed to be in, eventually you're going to make something happen. Good things are going to bounce your way from playing hard.
Exactly. Well, on to another New York team that's overachieved this year, the New York Jets. Well,
that's right.
They started off getting smoked by the Baltimore Ravens, and at that point, I'm thinking, well, they're going to be in the middle of another rebuilding year. They come from behind to beat the Cleveland Browns after recovering an onside kick and scoring 2 touchdowns before and after the onside kick. Yep. They got smoked by the Cincinnati Bengals, and then they started racking up wins with the exception of the losses to the New England Patriots, and then just last Sunday the Minnesota Vikings. So, what is your state of the New York Jets this year?
The Jets, their defense is really good, man. Really, really good. Like top 5 defensive potential. They've had some good wins. They have shocked me. They're ahead of schedule. They have really talented skill players. They have more talent as a team than the Giants do, in my opinion. What was holding them back before they made the change was quarterback. Excuse me. And now that they have Mike White here instead of Zach Wilson, I think the offense looks completely different. The receivers look happy. They're getting the ball. There's a confidence now with the offense, and they look competent. And if the offense is competent, the Jets are dangerous. Even though they lost to Minnesota in Week 13, I was kind of encouraged coming out of that loss. I like some of the things I saw. They didn't make some plays at the end. They could have won that game, especially considering they were down 23. The team had a lot of fight. I do not think that fight would have existed under Zach Wilson. I think Mike White's a better quarterback for the team than Zach Wilson. I think Jets are a dangerous team. Now, they might not win this week at Buffalo. So I think Buffalo might want a little revenge for what happened in MetLife a couple weeks ago. But the Jets are solid, man. They're solid. I feel much better about their chances to make the playoffs than I do the Giants. I think the Jets.
Exactly.
I think the Jets will make the playoffs. I think they'll find a way. And I think a lot of it has to do with Mike White's competent. Mike White looks like a competent quarterback. And you can see how it's uplifted the rest of the team, particularly the wide receivers on that team. You can just see he's unleashing Garrett Wilson. Elijah Moore's out there catching passes. They look like a completely different offense. I think if that keeps up, I think they can make the playoffs. Now, I'd be stunned if they beat the Bills this week, but they can win games. Look, they almost went in 1 minute. Had they won that game, it would have been huge for them. But they can still win games. I think they can get to 10, and I think they can get in. I thought it was crazy when my colleague Steve Serby at the beginning of the year said, he thought they could win 9 games. He said this when they were about, I think, 2-2. Might have been 3-2, but they could definitely win 9 games. They're at 7-5 right now. So we'll see. But I like their chances of making the playoffs, man. I do.
Exactly. And I know you're going to like them a lot more when I say this. If the New York Jets can defeat the Buffalo Bills, not only will they increase the chance of making the playoffs, they might even jump into one of the top 2 seeds in the AFC. I mean, seriously, they're going to be knocking on that door because after that, you're going to have games against Detroit. Well, I'm not sleeping on the Detroit Lions into what they did to the New York Giants, so I'm going to be fair with you on that one. They got the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Winnable games.
Those are winnable games you should get. And then, of course, the Miami Dolphins to finish the season because you know how good the Dolphins could be when Tua is the quarterback. The last time they played him, it was without Tua. Well, they held it to 17 points. So I'm going to be fair with the Miami Dolphins. And
yeah. And look, the coaching staff, they're telling them that don't look too ahead. That's our job to look ahead. But they've got winnable games against Detroit, against and you're right not to sleep in Detroit. Their offense is really good. So there's games they can win before they even play Miami. It's just, take care of business. I think if they take care of business, and I think if they could steal, if they stole one from either Miami or Buffalo, they're in good shape. That'll put you again at 10 wins. I think they're in very good shape, especially if they beat Buffalo and they have that tiebreak over them. Although I think Buffalo will make the playoffs too, but they're in fantastic shape. You might see 3 teams out of the AFC East make it, but there's no reason to believe the Jets couldn't be that team. Their quarterback situation might be the worst of the 3, and I would agree with that. But Mike White again has looked competent and looked like somebody who can get the ball moving, and that's what you need when you have a defense as good as the Jets do.
Oh yeah, and there's also that game against the Seattle Seahawks in the second last week of the season. I mean,
they have Seattle too.
Geno Smith, the former New York Jet, turned that franchise around. I mean, we thought the Seattle Seahawks were going to rebuild it. So that's another overachieved team right there. They're competing with the 49ers for the top spot in the AFC West. So I can see the Jets at least defeat Detroit and Jacksonville, probably defeat the Seattle Seahawks, but losses to and hopefully I have faith they beat Buffalo and Miami. Because after that, they knocking on that door, literally.
Mm-hmm. Look, they've got winnable games, but I'm going to keep the old football cliche, just taking one game at a time. Their focus has to be on Buffalo this week, getting better, executing the offense. We know this defense is really good. You see what they can do. But as long as they take care of their business, and if this offense keeps looking competitive, they're going to stay in games because their defense is good enough. And sometimes you saw like last week, your defense does that for you. They hold them to just a touchdown in the second half, and now you got yourself a chance because you can win this game. You give yourself a chance with a competent quarterback to win it. And if I think the Jets defense is good enough to keep them in any game, and the Jets offense as it's getting better should be enough to hang in any game and give their quarterback and the offense a chance to win the game. And I think if they have that, they could be a very dangerous team in the postseason. Very, very dangerous team.
Yeah, you want to know? Yeah, they will. You want to know what New York sports teams could be dangerous? And we're not even talking about right now. We're talking about next year in 2023. I'm talking about the team with that home run ball right
There we
behind
go.
you.
New York Mets.
They did lose Jacob DeGrom to the Texas Rangers. He signed a 5-year deal, but they picked up a gem in Justin Verlander and David Robinson. So I want to get your thoughts on the Mets offseason up until this point.
Listen, okay, so for me, when they first signed Verlander, I was not crazy about it because I have a bit of concern about the age.
That's fair because he's not getting younger. But
not
this is
getting
still
younger.
Justin Verlander that can be efficient when healthy.
Yeah, Father Time comes through us all. And I had some concerns there. But, when I thought about it a little bit more, 2 years, $86 million, I don't like the fact that they have so much money invested into starting pitching at the top of the rotation. That's not good. That's good. That's good. I just think it's a concern. I like the sign of Quintero. I thought that was a good signing. I know he's 34, but he's a solid pitcher, can give you innings. Good. I love the Robertson signing. I know Robertson's 37, but I love that signing. He's pitched in New York before, obviously for the Yankees. Veteran pitcher, knows how to get people out. Really good setup man, which is what they needed in front of, Edwin Diaz. Bringing Edwin Diaz back, obviously the first domino that fell. Bringing Edwin Diaz back. Now, I think what's amazing when you look at this offseason is the Mets have been spending money. Their payroll is going to be about $333 million at the time of recording this. Hopefully, they haven't signed anybody else. They're still in it for the Japanese pitcher Senga, which is a possibility, which would be a fantastic signing to get another young arm in this rotation. Brandon Nimmo resigns for 8 years. I thought he might get about $25 million. They got him for only, I say only, it sounds crazy, but about $20 million per, which is good for them, good value. Maybe a little too much on the years, but they bring Nimmo back. If they can add another arm like Senga to the rotation, man, now you're cooking with grease. Now I feel a little bit better if Verlander or Scherzer goes down. If you still have him and Carlos Carrasco and, a David Peterson, for example. But the Mets, man, the most impressive thing to me, and I don't think Mets fans haven't ever had to deal with this. They don't even know what it's like. The owner's spending, is willing to spend. Steve Cohen's willing to spend. And I don't think he's done from all accounts. And if he goes and gets Senga and signs him a deal, that shows you he's really committed to winning. Now, I think a lot of it is how the pieces come together and who could stay healthy and how they're able to integrate some of their young pieces like Beatty and Alvarez this year. But now, man, if you're a Mets fan, you got to be excited about this season and what they can do going into it. They've had a really good offseason. No matter how you feel about the Verlander deal, they've addressed some needs and got some really good talent in here.
Exactly. That talent has the potential to build off of last season because the way they went out against the Sadiga projects was atrocious, aside from Jacob DeGrom, who's now with the Texas Rangers performance. That seems is horrific. So they need any makeup on the roster that they can get.
Yep. Anything they can get. Look, last year I think left, and I wonder how much that fuels Cohen in the front office. That the way it ended last year gave a good left a bad taste in the mouth. I was there for that game 2 against the Padres in the wild card round, and where Jacob DeGrom pitched his last game. But I think they're going for it, and I think they want to have the strongest team possible. Look, the Phillies are trying to bolster their team in the division. They're not letting up. The Braves still have good young talent. The Dodgers are figuring out what they want to do. None of these teams are letting up, so I think the Mets know that they got to continue to spend to make this the best product possible and really compete in the division and in the National League, and hopefully to win a World Series title.
Yeah, exactly, because the Braves and Phillies are not getting any weaker, literally.
No, they're not, and it's going to be a very competitive division. But if you're a Mets fan, this is what you like. You want the competition. Mets fans are used to by November, we're done. We're getting bargain pieces, but they're going for it and they're spending the money. So
exactly.
I think the Jacob DeGrom decision was the right decision too. Like, I love Jacob DeGrom, love what he's done for the Mets, but you couldn't go 5 years with him with his injury history. And so them going 2 with Verlander, which is shorter, now that could blow up in their face too. But much as I would have loved to see DeGrom back and retire in the Mets uniform, that it was the right move for the team, long term and short term, in my opinion.
Exactly, and I expect big days of both teams that came up with offseason deals this year. I mean, the Texas Rangers, they're going to be somewhat better with that Jacob DeGrom deal, but since it's a New York Mets focused conversation, we can only hope that the agent of Justin Verlander and Matt Scherzer doesn't really come back to bite them, because these guys that duo for the Detroit Tigers, when they were those World Series teams, if there's any indication of what we're going to see from this duo, the New York Mets, we can expect good things from them.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, listen, if those guys are healthy and they're pitching the way they were last year, they'll be fine. But the key is health. And they're both getting older. Scherzer's going to be 38. Verlander will be 40 at the start of the season. There's a lot of concerns there. So, we'll see if they can stay healthy. We'll see.
Exactly. Another team that I expect to stay healthy, we transition to the New York Yankees. Another team that's been spending money this year. And I'm saying it for a reason because they spent a lot of money to bring back Aaron Judge, locking him up for 9 years. So
yeah, they had to.
Do you think that was a good deal to bring back Aaron Judge as opposed to letting him walk aside with the San Francisco Giants?
Yeah. Absolutely, they had to. This is a guy, I think for the Yankees to lose the guy who's probably going to be their next captain, all-star, MVP, guy just, broke the American League record for home runs. To lose him would have been embarrassing for the Yankees. They had to bring him back. You got that kind of player. You got to pay him. Sure, you're going to be paying him until he's 39, 40, but whatever. You had to show him the bag, man. Like, now, what else and how they build around him, we'll see, because they do have some questions they got to answer in their lineup more than a team like the Mets. But yeah, man, they had to bring him back. Good deal. Got it done. Had to bring him back to New York, no doubt.
Without question, Yankees, this is a very historic winning franchise. They have the most World Series wins. Absolutely. But they haven't been to the World Series since 2009. Yep. And part of the reason why is because they always had run-ins with the Houston Astros. And we need one exception, the Boston Red Sox in those 2 seasons. We're not even going to talk about that. But with the pitch rotation kind of regressive for the Houston Astros, do you think that 2023 will be the year the Yankees have a much better record and a much better season than the Houston Astros?
Houston's still really good, man. I know Verlander is still really good. Will they have a better record than the Astros? I'll wait and see what else the Yankees do with their offseason. I think they could, but I think a lot of it's going to start with their pitching. Is it really consistent? Can they get a full year out of Severino? Garrett Cole took some steps forward this year. Nestor Cortez, I think their pitching's good, but I feel like, they're another team that can use Senga. I think if they had one other pitcher that you really, really, really trusted, Severino's good, but you can't ever trust him because he's not healthy. If they had one other pitcher, I think they're another really strong pitcher away from me saying that. So right now, I'm still going to give the edge to the Astros because they got the championship medal, they got the confidence, they've been there. But I know no Verlander, but they still got that championship flowing through their veins and their DNA. They know how to get it done. There's a lot of guys on that team that know how to get it done.
Exactly. So exactly. I mean, we always talk about this. The Astros, their talent discrepancy is just way too high for the New York Yankees and for most teams in general.
Yeah, I mean, and the Astros, man, they're a really good squad. Like I said, championship medal, like, they're really good. And the Yankees have been trying to get over the hump with them and just can't. And really what's come down to it a lot. We saw this in the playoffs this year when the Yankees faced them. The Yankees just haven't been able to get the timely hitting. That's really what it comes down to. The Yankees have pitched terribly in their series against Houston in the LCS. They just could not get the timely hitting. And this is what Yankee teams that won in the late 90s and early 2000s, that's what those teams had, the timely hitting, the good pitch, solid pitching. And, we'll see. But, yeah, the Yankees, I think a lot of it's going to do is, like, what else can they do with their pitching and how do they shore up some of the stuff with their infield, I think will go a long way to how good they can be.
Exactly. And you know what? Now that we're done talking about all the New York teams, like, as somebody that works for New York Post and SNY, like, why don't you give us a little bit about the daily operations we're preparing for the online segments to talk about these New York teams?
Yeah, so what we do with New York Post and SNY, a lot of it is we're giving you updates on things that are going on, but we also our best videos are ones that fans seem to like a lot, is the ones where we're interviewing a lot of the insiders, the people who are beat reporters with the team that cover them every day, is finding out those little things. And then sometimes not just the insiders, but, we've been doing a lot of stuff, or at least I have, with some of the independent content creators around the Knicks, whether it's Jonathan Macri from the Knicks Film School or CP the franchise from Knicks Fan TV, and people from all different other places. I just did something the other day with Nick Pollock from Pitcher List, who's like a pitching guru. Covers a lot of stuff with pitching in the MLB and talking about the decision to sign Verlander. And so, yeah, that's kind of what we do. We talk a lot. I come in today. I talk with my producer. We go through some ideas of what we want to do. Some of it is pre-planned. Some segments we have in advance. We record these interviews and we get them out to you guys as quick as possible. So they're on different platforms like Twitter and YouTube and on the New York Post website or SNY website. And so that's really the process. Sundays are a lot of fun too, because we got a lot going on after the games with football. And then we talk to a lot of the insiders after the game. So it's a lot of fun because, you got to pay attention to sports, but you're also writing scripts and prepping questions and thinking about, the way I try to do things, I try to think about what do the fans want to know? What do the fans really want to know from the beat writers after the game? That's the way I always think about it. And I approach my interviewing style like that. What do the fans want to know? And, but now they're fun, man. They're so much fun. And it's been almost a year since we've been doing it. And it's been getting a lot of great reception from fans and people watching our content everywhere. So we're excited to see what year 2 will be in terms of us creating the content, man. I expect it to be a lot of fun too.
Yeah, I expect great days from you. And with this partnership with SNY has with the New York Post, like, how is that alone going to bring empathy to the sports media culture?
What's funny, man? I think that it's going to change a lot. I'm not saying this to be hyperbolic or anything. I do think it's going to change a lot. I think a lot of media outlets, particularly newspapers, have tried to do a lot with video, and I think they're looking for different ways to get video content out there. And I think it was 2 strong brands that came together and are able to do stuff. And so you're able to share resources. So we have access, even though I'm technically a New York Post employee, we have access to the SNY insiders like Ian Begley, who's a good friend of mine I've known for years, starting off in journalism, or Andy Martino or Janae Coakley or Bart Scott and different people like that we're able to get access to and do different things with. And that helps a lot, and vice versa. So yeah, it's something I think that's really going to grow. I think you're going to see a lot more digital partnerships like this between online publications or newspapers and regional networks. I think this won't be the last that you'll see around the country. I think other people will do it and look at it and see how it can grow, because a lot of people look for our content and a lot of people look for what we talk about in different things in different sports. So I'm just hoping that it's something that can grow. And I truly believe that it will grow as an entity. And the fans seem to be very receptive to it. And it's been a learning experience. Some videos we do haven't really hit in a certain way, and some have. And one of the things we're seeing grow now is a lot of the sports betting content we're doing, and I've been doing some stuff around that, and so that's been growing in a nice way. And there's just so much opportunities with a lot of journalism in the digital space, and I love it, man. Digital space is a great place to be.
Exactly, and exactly, you're doing stuff for that, and they also doing stuff for Backpack Podcasting, as in interviewing so many different sports media professionals that come together to talk sports.
Yep.
And you manage to find ways to make it sure that the sports landscape is diverse.
Oh yeah, I mean and diversity is something we got to talk about more in sports journalism. And one of the things that I really try to think about when I'm setting up interviews, especially when it's people outside of the New York Post that I'm bringing on and different people that I know, is, are we getting diverse voices on this? Are we hearing from women on this? Are we hearing from Black journalists? Are we hearing from Jewish journalists, Latino journalists, Asian journalists? Are we hearing from different voices? Or are we always putting the same people up to talk to? I think if you're not thinking about that as a content creator, then you're doing a disservice to your audience. So you want to think about empowering and uplifting other voices and finding new voices and new people that have different perspectives on this. Even me, as somebody who does interviews, if I'm just interviewing the same people all the time, it's going to get boring. I want people with different perspectives. I want to hear different things. I want to be challenged as an interviewer. And I want to be up on who else out there is doing something in a different space. And so I constantly look for those voices. And I've been blessed to have given opportunities to different voices that you might not see or hear in certain spaces. And I think I look at it as that's part of my responsibility on the platform that I do have. Because a lot of times there aren't a lot of people that look like me. So they're not really thinking about diversity in that way. So unfortunately, sometimes it falls on us as people of color to be like, all right, we need some diversity up here. And it's not even just about, like I said, about color. Sometimes it's about gender, it's about sexual orientation, and making sure even for those people, they have diverse voices out there that need to be heard in different platforms that haven't traditionally got those opportunities. So diversity, man, is something I definitely think about, not just in the type of content I do, but who also I'm interviewing and talking to and lending opportunities for them to have their voice, within the platform that I'm on.
Exactly. It's because of that you managed to get, again, as I mentioned, you got CP the franchise, you got JD Sports Talk. I mean, I was one of the few people that knew about JD Sports Talk, but after all the work he done for Knicks Fan TV.
Yeah.
I've actually seen Knicks Fan TV in person when I went to the NBA draft. I believe it was 2019.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's what's crazy with those guys. Shout out to CP and JD and Alex.
You got to be on ESPN talking basketball with Max McKellarman, with Max Kellerman. Man, that was crazy debate. Like he made Max look tough.
Yeah. He had, as CP says, I think he has in his Twitter bio. He's like, I'm undefeated versus Max Kellerman, and I like that. I'm so, and I've told these guys this to their faces, and in ways I've talked to them. I'm so proud of what they've accomplished because as independent content creators and really CP, because he's really the head that's pushed it, and how he's created opportunities for other people. I really want to shout him out for that because that's what you're supposed to do. This is what you're supposed to do with your platforms. And Knick fans rallied around what they do, and I think they're very successful because what they do is organic. Same thing to Jonathan Macri with Knicks Film School, and shout out to the guys with the Knicks Wall as well too. I think all these guys have different things that they do. They're organic, and they're very inspirational as content creators. And I love what they're doing. And I've been watching Knicks Fan TV and CP and what those guys are doing for a long time. And how CP and I connected, I just reached out to him. I think it was last season, beginning of last basketball season. I just shot him an email and was like, hey, man, like, I'd love for you to come on my show. And he did come on my show. And I still think that's one of our best watched episodes of the NBA Exchange. And then, we've always been kept in touch and DM'd and followed each other. And then when I got the gig at the New York Post and SNY, I told him I know he does some stuff contributing to SNY. I said, man, we'll do some stuff, do some videos together and stuff. And so we've done that. Those videos always do great. And I finally got to meet CP this summer. And then CP had hit me up right before the opening night of the season. And he had invited me to come to the Knicks Fan TV event they were having at 4040. And it was just for me to come. And I was going to support, just to go out and support them because they were having this event. And then he hit me up, I think like a couple days before, and he said, hey, you think you could bring a camera here and maybe do something on us? And I said, yeah, let me talk to my boss. And I did, and I pitched the idea to them. And we did a little report, and I got to interview him and Alex and JD, kind of about what they've done with Knicks Fan TV, and also what it was like to have this opening event at the 4040 Club. So I think for all of us, it was a cool moment because that was my first time actually meeting JD and Alex in person, although I had talked to them. And shout out to JD. JD will be on with me this weekend to talk some Knicks stuff as well too. So I'm glad to have those guys in the fold because they are diverse voices that get to come on in this space as people who cover the Knicks and are really connected to the fans. They're just a different style of voice, and I think that's so necessary in sports journalism. There's room for everybody. There's room for all different voices, but I think when you're in a position that I'm in, as a interviewer or journalist, it's important to keep looking for those new voices and those fresh voices and trying to bring them into the space of what you're doing. Because if you're just using the same voices all the time, man, it gets tired. And I think we've seen a lot of that in journalism historically, but it's time to break that trend.
And you can only go up from here.
I believe so, man. I believe so. We can all only go up. You can always be better than you were yesterday. And that's how I try to approach everything. There's every day is always an opportunity to do something a little bit better than you did before. So, always think of ways about how you can get better, whether it's as a journalist, whether it's how you help other people. There's always ways you could be better than you were before. And I try. It's a process, but I try as hard as I can to be better at my craft, be better as a human being than I was the day before. So that's all I can do. One day at a time, brother. That's all I can do. One day at a time.
And you can only go up from here. And now up for this episode, nothing but that sports. So thank you so much, Dexter Henry, for coming on the show to give your wisdom of journalism and get the state of all the New York teams up until this point, and including the all-season deals for the match of the Yankees. And I look forward to talking some more New York sports with you in the near future. And to all the ballers out there, get your head in the game.